Talk about the NFC East predictions. As you all know, folks, you got the Dallas Cowboys on the top left corner, and the bottom left corner, you got the New York Giants. And on the top right corner, you got the NFC champion, not only NFC East champions, but the NFC champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. And of course, you got Washington. So, what are my thoughts about the NFC East division? Believe it or not, I honestly have the Dallas Cowboys. I cannot believe I'm saying this of all teams. I can't stand the Dallas Cowboys. I can't stand their fans. I think they're nauseating. I think they're delusional. I think they live in fantasy island, but they should win the division because I don't believe the Philadelphia Eagles are going to replicate what they did last season. Although you could make an argument that the NFC is literally wide open, the NFC is nowhere near the AFC, where you have to deal with teams like Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Now you have to throw in the New York Jets because of Aaron Rodgers. The NFC is open. I mean, outside of Philadelphia and San Francisco to a lesser extent, who are teams that you look at and you can say that could really legitimately compete in the NFC and go all the way? It seems wide open in the NFC. But when you look at Philadelphia, I think it's going to be very difficult for Philadelphia to replicate the type of season that they had last year. I think defensive teams are going to be better prepared going up against the Eagles' offense. I also think, though, that Jalen Hurts, and I love Jalen Hurts because he went to one of my favorite schools that I still support, OU, Oklahoma. I do think he's going to take a step back. I do think that the Eagles, they will still compete. They'll still make the playoffs, but I do not have them winning the division. When is the last time a team in the NFC East division has won it back-to-back years? You got to go back to the Eagles back in 03 and 04. The reason why I have the Dallas Cowboys winning the division, and I'm going to talk about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, has been receiving a lot of criticism, and rightfully so, for his performance last year. Didn't play that many games because of injury, but he was tied for the most interceptions last year, 15, with Davis Mills of the Houston Texans. Obviously, we heard the recent news about the Dallas Cowboys trading a fourth round pick to the San Francisco 49ers, in exchange for Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance, folks, we all know the 49ers moved up in the draft to select him with the third overall pick. And I think it's fair to say at this point, Trey Lance is a bust. Because if we're going to say that with Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, number one overall pick, Sam Darnold, the third overall pick, if we're going to criticize them and call them busts, we're going to have to say that with Trey Lance. We have to keep that same energy. Last year, you could look at it and say, well, Trey Lance was hurt, but I look at it from the standpoint he lost the backup job to Brock Purdy, to Sam Darnold. We knew that Brock Purdy was going to be the starter, considering how well he played last year and what he's shown them, what he's shown the 49ers management and organization. But the fact that Trey Lance lost the backup job to Sam Darnold, that says something to me, because it tells me the 49ers made a huge mistake selecting him with the third overall pick, not only selecting him with the third pick, trading up in the draft. And if you look at that draft, there were some noticeable players that they could have drafted. They could have went with Mac Jones or Justin Fields at quarterback. If they wanted to go in a direction of defense, they could have drafted Michael Parsons. Jamar Chase was even there. So there was a lot of talent that they left off. And yes, my boy Willie Williams, that was wild. Yeah, that trade was wild though. But you know what? The more you actually look at that trade, I think it was because of Jerry Jones. I think Jerry Jones went with that trade because Jerry Jones likes box office. And I think at this point with Jerry Jones, he may be done with Dak Prescott. I think the reason why this trade happened is because he feels like ever since Dak, when he gave Dak that contract, Dak has been living up to the stuff. Jerry's getting up there in age. I think Jerry is reaching his stage in mortality. And then Willie said put pressure on Dak as well as I think. Yep. And there you go. Yeah. But I think Trey Lance will probably start until next season or in 2025 because in 2025 Dak will be a free agent. But speaking of Dak, I think considering the year that Dak had last year, I think Dak has a lot to prove. Dak has a lot to show that you know what, this is going to be the year that I got to bounce back. And considering the fact that that the Cowboys, without even consulting Dak and Mike McCarthy, that Jerry Jones decided to make this trade by trading a fourth round pick for Trey Lance, there's going to be some pressure on Dak Prescott. And Dak Prescott has to live up to that. And a lot of times I've called him overrated. A lot of times I even said he's the black Kirk Cousins because I think he's a good, solid quarterback who can put up numbers, but you can't consistently or heavily rely upon him to win big games and big moments. And you got a good enough defense led by Marco Parsons, led by Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator. So this is a make it or break it year for Dak. I actually do think the Dallas Cowboys should win the division. Not because I like the Cowboys. I don't. I don't like their fans, but it's going to be hard for the Eagles to replicate what they did last season. So I have Dallas winning the division at 1. I have the Eagles at 2. I think they'll take a little step back, but I still think they're going to be good enough to compete for a playoff spot. And then you look at third between New York and Washington. I think Daniel Jones had an impressive year last year because of Brian Dabble, the head coach. Daniel Jones, and again, I've always gone back and forth. Why did the Giants drafted him with the 6th overall pick? We all knew Kyler Murray was going to be number 1. It was either him or rest his soul, Dwayne Haskins Jr. And Dave Gettleman was the GM at the time. Did you felt like you drafted him because you felt like he was the best quarterback available, or did you drafted him because he went to Duke? He played with David Cutcliffe, who worked with the Mannings, and you felt like this would be the guy to supersede or be the successor to Eli Manning. Daniel Jones had a good season. He was solid. He played well in the playoff game, his first playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings, and won. They did get Saquon Barkley back, but only for 1 year. The Giants won that one because Saquon does not have a no franchise tag clause in his contract. So right after the season, they could put the franchise tag on him. They did add some pieces by Jalen Hyatt, who was a big steal coming out of the University of Tennessee. So you give Daniel Jones another weapon to work with. And look, he hasn't had much weapons to work with. I mean, outside of Darius Slayton, I mean, come on, Kenny Galladay, that was bad. That was really bad. And when you look at the Giants, their defense, I think they have a solid defense. But when I look at Washington, I have them finishing last place in the division. I do. I have them finishing last place in the division. And when you look at their schedule, let me see if I have their schedule right here. I know I do. Yeah, you look at it right there. You look at the rest of the Commanders' schedule in 2023. So, we got week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals, then week 2 against the Broncos. I give myself, we should be 2-0 because when you look at the Cardinals, week 1, they're tanking the rest of the season. They're going to do whatever they can to get Caleb Williams. And when you look at week 2 away, even though it's at Denver, but is Russell Wilson going to have a big bounce back season? We know Denver's defense, they're going to compete, and we know Sean Payton is going to be there, but it all depends on Russell Wilson and his play. So I feel pretty comfortable we go 2-0. Then we have a home game against the Bills. I see us losing that one. Then we lose to the Eagles October 1st. Then we have a Thursday night football game against the Chicago Bears. I'll be watching that game on Amazon. The Commanders should win that game. Although I do expect Justin Fields to have an improvement year. Not a huge year, not a huge improvement year, but an improvement year nevertheless. I do think that the Commanders at home with that fan base there, and I think with Sam Howell, I do think we should win that one. So we should be 3-2. Then October 15th, we got the Atlanta Falcons. We go on the road against Atlanta. Atlanta's offense does scare me because of the potential that they have with Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. But I'm not concerned about the Falcons' defense. So I think we should win that one, 4-2. Then on the road to the New York Giants, we should lose that one. And then we should lose that one to the Eagles. So you make it 4-4. Then on the road against the Patriots. That's a tough one for me because when you look at it, Bill Belichick, the defense has been his signature. But the problem is who's it going to be? Is it Mac Jones? Is it going to be Bailey Zappi? I'm going to give the Patriots that one. I'm going to give the Patriots that one. So you put Washington 4-5. Then they'll be 4-6 because they're going up against the Seahawks. And I do believe Geno Smith is a better quarterback than people give him credit for. A lot of people thought that last year, that was a fluke. I don't think it's a fluke at all. I think Geno Smith, in my opinion, is a top 10 quarterback. Then November 19th, home against the Giants. I'll give Washington that one. So you make it 5-6. Now, November 23rd, on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I do remember 4 years ago during the pandemic season, Washington, that was a great game in which we shitted on the Dallas Cowboys. I think it was like 41-16. But assuming if Dak Prescott stays healthy, assuming if Dallas defense continuously does what they do, putting pressure on Sam Howell and the offensive line, I still think it's going to be a heavily tight game, but I have the Cowboys win that one. I say 23-19. So I think that's like 5-7. Then they have a home game against the Miami Dolphins. That's 5-8. So 5-8. That's 6-8. I'm sorry. Then you have the Los Angeles Rams. You should win that one, so that's 7-8. You should lose to the New York Giants. You should lose to the San Francisco 49ers. And you should probably win against the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry if I lost count, folks, but for the Commanders, I think at best 8-9. So the teams that they should win are the Cardinals, the Broncos, the Bears, the Falcons, the Giants at home November 19th. They should beat the Rams, and they should win at the Cowboys in the season finale. Because I believe that the Cowboys, they're going to win a division. They're going to wrap up the division. They're probably going to sit their starters or whatever. They're not going to play as much, and that's about it. So I see the Commanders 8-9 this season. At best, 8-9. Now, 8-9, that doesn't sound really too bad compared to what I previously had. I think they probably would have been 6-11 or 7-10. But 8-9 ain't too bad.